She stepped off the stagecoach before the wheels quit turning. One boot missed the station board, her carpet bag hit the dust, and the small green case in her arms knocked hard against her ribs as she caught herself on the side of the coach. For a moment, Mercy Ridge forgot how to move. Not because women never cried there. On the frontier, grief walked into town as often as freight. But brides were supposed to arrive smiling. They were supposed to step down, neat, hopeful, grateful, ready to be inspected like a promise that had come in the mail. This bride arrived with tears running down her face. He climbed down behind her and slapped dust from his coat. "Rough road from Helena," he muttered. "She ain't said 10 words since the pass." A few men near the feed store turned to look. 2 women stopped outside the mercantile window. A boy with a sack of nails held very still, as if even the sound of iron shifting might make her break worse. Hannah Bell stood in the middle of the street in a travel dress the color of storm clouds, holding that green case so tight her knuckles went pale. She pressed her gloved hand over her mouth, but the sob came through anyway. Isaac Calder saw her from the hitching rail. He had been waiting with one wagon, 2 tired horses, and the kind of patience a man learned from mending fence in bad weather. He had placed the advertisement almost 3 months earlier in a Helena paper. Widowed rancher, 32, seeking practical wife, clean home, honest work, no false promises. He had expected a woman with questions. He had not expected one who looked as if the world had followed her all the way to his town and shoved her down into the dust. Isaac stepped away from the rail. He did not hurry. Hurrying made people feel chased. He simply crossed the street, removed his hat, and stopped close enough to speak without making a spectacle of her. "Miss Bell?" Hannah lowered her hand. Her eyes were swollen. Her face was damp. Her chin lifted with a pride that looked more painful than strength. "I am sorry," she said at once. "I did not mean to arrive like this." Isaac said, "No one chooses how a road ends." That caught her off guard. She looked at him then, truly looked. He was broad through the shoulders, sun-browned, with a short beard and eyes that did not soften for show. He did not look cruel. He did not look easily fooled either. The driver dragged her trunk down and set it near Isaac's wagon. "This your woman, Calder?" Isaac's jaw moved once. "She is Miss Bell," he said. "He can stand where she likes." The driver lifted both hands and walked away. Hannah looked toward the faces along the street, and the color drained from her cheeks. "They are staring. They stare at every crate that comes in from Helena," Isaac said. "Doesn't make the crate less useful." A startled sound escaped her. It was not quite a laugh. Not yet. Isaac nodded toward the wagon. "You may say what happened, or you can keep it in that case until you're ready. But I won't have you standing here bleeding in front of people who came to buy flour." Her grip tightened around the green case. "I am not bleeding." "No," he said quietly. "You're doing something harder." Trying not to. For 1 second, the careful shape of her face collapsed. She breathed in, sharp and shallow. "I was told," she whispered, "that if I came here in tears, no decent man would keep me." Isaac held her gaze. Then it is lucky I am not looking for a performance, he said. I am looking for the truth. The words landed harder than comfort would have. Hannah followed him to the wagon. He lifted her trunk, tied it down, and offered his hand only when she needed the step. She climbed up without taking it. He did not seem offended. As the wagon pulled away from Mercy Ridge, the town shrank behind them. All dust and windows and watching eyes. Hannah sat straight, green case in her lap, as if letting it go would make her disappear. For a while, the only sound was the groan of wheels and the clink of harness. Then she said, "My former name was not ruined by anything I did." Isaac kept his eyes on the road. "All right." "I was meant to marry Edwin Price. His family owned half the Mill Street in Carter Falls. His mother ran the Ladies' Aid. His father sat on the school board." She swallowed. "When I ended it, he told people I was unstable. Then he said money had gone missing from the school fund, and that I had handled the ledger." Isaac's hands tightened on the reins, but his voice stayed calm. "Had you?" "I copied numbers into a book. I never touched the money." Her eyes lowered to the case. They did not need proof. They only needed a man with a good coat to sound disappointed in me. The sentence had a bitter steadiness that told Isaac she had practiced saying it without crying. "The schoolhouse let me go," she continued. "People who had known me since I was a girl crossed the street rather than greet me. Edwin sent word that he could make it all quiet if I apologized and came back." "And did you?" Her mouth trembled. "I bought a stage ticket instead." The ranch appeared late in the afternoon, tucked beneath a low ridge of yellow grass and grey stone. It was not grand. A square house, a barn leaning slightly west, 2 corrals, a wind-bent cottonwood, and fences that had clearly lost arguments with winter. Hannah looked at it for a long moment. "It is smaller than I imagined," she said, then flushed. "I did not mean—" "It is smaller than I imagined, too," Isaac said. "That was before the roof took most of my savings." For the first time her mouth softened. A brindled dog came racing from the barn and barked at the wagon with great official importance. "Moss," Isaac called, "mind your manners." The dog ignored him completely and shoved his nose at Hannah's skirt. She froze, then reached down with cautious fingers. Moss licked her glove. A small laugh finally broke through. Isaac heard it and said nothing. Some things lived better when no one pointed at them. Inside, the house was plain and clean. A scrubbed table, a black iron stove, a shelf of worn books, a blue quilt folded over the back of a chair. In the room prepared for her, a pitcher of water waited beside a small jar of prairie flowers. Hannah touched the flowers as if they were evidence. "You did this?" Didn't want the room looking like it had been waiting for a ghost. Her eyes moved to his face. "Do you expect me to be your wife tonight?" "No." The answer came so fast she blinked. Isaac stood in the doorway, hat in both hands. "I wrote for a wife, not a frightened prisoner. We will marry when you can stand beside me without feeling trapped. If that is never, we will decide what is decent then." Hannah stared at him. "You would let me leave?" "If you choose it honestly." "And if I stay?" Then we build honestly." The word returned between them like a gate opening and closing. That night, Hannah did not sleep much. The house creaked. The prairie wind pressed against the walls. Twice she woke certain she had heard her old town whispering through the cracks. Before dawn, she rose, dressed, and went to the kitchen. By the time Isaac came in from the barn, she had coffee warming and biscuit dough under her hands. Flour dusted one cheek. Her eyes were tired but focused. "You needn't prove your worth before breakfast," he said. Her hands kept working. "I know." "Do you?" She stopped then. "I know it in my head," she said. "The rest of me is slower." Isaac washed at the basin, then sat. "Slow is allowed here. So is useful. They are not the same thing." Hannah looked down at the dough. "I was useful once. I taught children their letters. I kept accounts for the school. I knew where every primer was kept." A thin smile passed over her face. "Then one man said one ugly thing, and everyone decided I had never been useful at all." Isaac leaned back. "A thing does not stop being true because fools get loud around it." She studied him, and he saw the part of her that wanted to believe, but did not dare spend hope too quickly. The first week gave her work enough to quiet the worst of her fear. She learned the stove's temper. She found the cracked window that rattled before a storm. She discovered that moss stole socks and hid them under the porch. She rode with Isaac along the fence line on a brown mare named Juniper, keeping her seat better than he expected. When he showed her the lower meadow, he said, "That stretch floods in spring. Good grass after." She looked across the land. "Is it yours?" He corrected her without ceremony. "Ours, if you stay." The word struck her harder than the wind. Ours. Back in Carter Falls, every place had belonged to someone else. The school belonged to the board, belonged to families with names painted on donation plaques. Even her reputation had turned out to be something a man could pick up and drag through mud. Here, the grass did not know her past. The barn did not care what Edwin Price had said. The fence needed tightening whether she had arrived graceful or ruined. 2 days later, Isaac took her into Mercy Ridge for supplies. Hannah dressed plainly, choosing the brown cotton instead of the gray travel dress. She pinned her hair tight and left the green case at the ranch. Still, when the wagon entered town, her stomach folded in on itself. At the Mercantile, Mrs. Ada Finch looked up from weighing coffee and smiled. "You must be Miss Bell." Hannah braced for the rest. Instead, Mrs. Finch said, "Isaac has been buying more sugar than one man needs. I wondered when he would stop pretending it was for preserving." Isaac coughed behind her. Hannah's smile came before she could guard it. "I cannot promise the sugar will be used well." "Then you will fit right in," Mrs. Finch said. "Half this town burns biscuits and calls it character." While Isaac spoke about feed sacks, a young mother approached Hannah with a shy boy pressed against her skirt. "Mrs. Calder?" "Not yet," Hannah corrected gently. The woman nodded. "Miss Bell, then. I heard you used to teach." Hannah went still. "My Eli is 8 and slow with letters," the woman said. "Not slow in his head, just stubborn in his hand." "Would you have time to look at his slate one afternoon?" Hannah felt the store sharpen around her. She had expected accusation. She had prepared for polite distance. She had not prepared for being needed. "I would be glad to," she said, and her voice barely held. On the ride home, Isaac glanced at her. "You look different." "She asked me to teach her boy," Hannah said, "and no one asked what I was accused of." "Maybe Mercy Ridge has more sense than Carter Falls. Or less information. Sometimes those are the same, Mercy." Throughout evening, a storm came low and black over the ridge. Rain hit the roof hard enough to turn conversation thin. Thunder rolled across the grass like a wagon full of stones. Hannah stood near the stove, pretending to fold a towel. At the first crack of lightning, her breath caught. Isaac looked up from mending a bridle. "Prairie storms sound bigger than they are." "I know." But her fingers were white around the cloth. He set the leather aside and opened the stove door so the room glowed warmer. "No one from Carter Falls is coming through that rain." Hannah closed her eyes. It was the first time he had named the fear without making her name it first. "In that town," she said slowly, "every knock sounded like judgment. Every letter could be another door closing. I told myself I was strong because I did not cry where they could see." Isaac waited. "But I was not strong," she said. "I was tired." He stood, not close enough to corner her, but close enough that she did not feel alone in the room. Tired is not the opposite of strong. Thunder cracked again. This time, she did not flinch as hard. The storm washed the sky clean by morning. Hannah stepped outside before breakfast and breathed in wet grass and cold earth. For one clean minute, she felt almost new. Then a rider came over the east rise. He was a narrow man in a good black hat, with a smile that looked borrowed and unpaid for. He tied his horse at the fence without invitation. "You must be Calder's mail bride," he said. Hannah folded her hands. "I am Hannah Bell." "Nathan Sloan." His eyes moved over the yard, then back to her. "I own the East Range, or I will once Isaac gets tired of fighting poor soil and poorer luck." "He is in the barn." "I came to welcome you." Nathan stepped closer. "And to give advice. A woman with a soft face should learn what kind of man brings a stranger out here to save his house." Hannah felt the old heat of humiliation climb her neck. But she had run too far to lower her eyes for the first man who enjoyed watching her do it. "A man who writes honest advertisements," she said, "has already shown more courtesy than most." Nathan's smile thinned. Isaac's voice came from the barn. "Sloan?" One word, flat as a closed door. Nathan looked between them and tipped his hat. "Just being neighborly." "Try being distant." The rider laughed, but he mounted quickly. As he rode off, Hannah watched the dust follow him. "Will he be trouble?" she asked. "He prefers it," Isaac said. "For you?" "For anyone who lets him smell fear." Hannah looked toward the road. "Then he will come back." Isaac did not deny it. The whispers began 3 days later. Hannah felt them in the mercantile before she heard them. Conversation dipped when she stepped inside. Mrs. Finch still greeted her, but the smile carried worry now. Near the stove, 2 men spoke low enough to pretend innocence and loud enough to bruise. "Came west awful sudden. School money, I heard." Hannah's hand closed around a sack of flour. For a moment, Carter Falls rose around her so clearly she could smell wet wool coats and lamp oil. She saw Edwin Price standing under the church steps, wounded and righteous, letting people do his cruelty for him. Then she remembered the fence line, the storm, Isaac saying slow was allowed, the boy with the slate waiting for help. She turned.
West because a man lied after I refused to marry him, she said. The mercantile went silent. The first man stared at the stove. The second shifted his boots. Hannah kept her voice level. If Mercy Ridge wishes to judge me, it may at least do so using the truth. She paid for flour with hands that shook only after she was outside. When Isaac found her at the wagon, he saw everything. Sloan, she said. His face hardened. What did they say? Enough. I will speak to him. No. The force in her voice surprised both of them. She softened but did not retreat. Not yet. If you fight every whisper for me, then the town learns only that you are strong.
I need them to learn I am not a rumor. Isaac studied her. And if he keeps at it, then we answer with more than anger. That answer came sooner than either wanted. The following Sunday, Mercy Ridge held supper behind the church after services. Long boards were set on barrels, lanterns hung from rope. Women brought beans and pie. Men pretended not to compare horses. Children ran through the dust in their good clothes. Hannah wanted to stay home. Instead, she pinned her hair, put on the grey dress she had arrived in, and opened the green case for the first time since coming to the ranch.
Inside were 3 folded letters, a blue ribbon, and a small school primer with fingerprints worn into the cover. Isaac watched from the doorway. You do not have to carry that. I do, she said. Not because they deserve proof. Because I am done acting as if my own life embarrasses me. Started free. The first hour passed almost gently. Eli showed her the word he had practiced. Mrs. Finch asked for help choosing fabric. An old man told Isaac the rain had saved the north pasture. Then Nathan Sloan stood near the lantern rope and raised his voice. I suppose, he said, we're all meant to welcome anyone Isaac Calder brings among us. The talk faded. Isaac turned slowly. Nathan held a folded paper. But a town should know what sort of woman teaches its children. Hannah's skin went cold. Nathan read enough to do damage. Not all of it. Just the parts about dismissal, instability, questionable conduct, and school funds. He did not say who wrote it. He did not need to. Men like Nathan understood that half a lie could travel farther than the whole truth. When he finished, no one moved. Hannah could feel Isaac beside her, rage held so tightly it seemed to change the air. But he did not step in front of her. He only said, low enough for her alone, your voice, if you want it. It was not rescue. It was room. Hannah walked forward with the green case in both hands. Her knees felt unreliable. Her mouth had gone dry. She could hear the little sounds of the town waiting to decide whether she would collapse. She opened the case. This letter, she said, holding up the first folded page. was sent to me by the Carter Falls School Board after Edwin Price accused me. Nathan gave a short laugh. Convenient. Yes, Hannah said. It was convenient for them, too. She unfolded it and read only the part that mattered. Her position could be restored upon a public apology to Mr. and a promise to honor the engagement previously agreed upon by both families. She lowered the page. If I had stolen money, an apology to a rejected suitor would not restore my place. Her voice shook now, but it did not break. They did not want justice. They wanted obedience. Mrs. Finch's face changed first. Then, the young mother who had brought Eli moved closer to her son. The men near the barrels looked away, not with suspicion now, but shame. Hannah lifted the small primer. These belonged to children I taught, because when every adult in my town decided to forget who I was, I needed proof that I had once been useful to someone. A long silence followed. Nathan's mouth tightened. In a freeze, the stovepipe cracked. Money thinned until every purchase had to be discussed twice and made once. There were days when Hannah wondered whether belonging always came with so much work attached. But hardship was different from exile. Hardship did not ask her to lie about herself. It did not require her to smile while being erased. It only asked for hands, patience, and another morning. One evening, after snow had sealed the road and the house held the warm smell of beans and wood smoke, Isaac found Hannah sitting on the bedroom floor with the green case open. The letters lay in her lap. "You all right?" he asked. She nodded. "Deciding whether to burn them." Isaac leaned against the doorway. "And?" "I thought I needed them because they proved I was telling the truth." She folded the school board letter along its old crease. "But the truth is no longer trapped inside this case." She looked toward the kitchen, where 5 slates leaned against the wall waiting for the next lesson. She looked at the quilt, the lamp, the boots by the door, the house that no longer felt borrowed. "Mercy Ridge knows enough," she said. "And so do I." Isaac crossed the room and sat beside her. He did not touch the letters until she handed them to him. Together, they fed the first page into the stove. The flame took slowly at the edge, then brightened. Hannah watched the words curl into ash. No triumph came. No grand release. Only a quiet loosening, like a hand unclenching after holding too long. "I was ashamed of crying when I arrived," she said. "I know. I thought it meant I had failed before I even began." Isaac looked at the fire. "I thought it meant you had carried too much alone." She turned to him, eyes shining but steady. "You never asked me to pretend." "No," he said. "I had already lived in a house full of pretending. It stays clean on the outside and rots at the beams." Hannah smiled through the last of her tears. Outside, the wind crossed the frozen grass and struck the walls. But the house held. Months earlier, she had stepped down into Mercy Ridge with dust on her hem, shame at her back, and a green case pressed against her like the last safe thing she owned. Now the case sat empty beside her. The letters were ash. The house was warm. And Hannah Calder finally understood that the opposite of disgrace was not applause. It was being known clearly, and staying anyway. She had arrived in tears. She stayed without hiding them.